The animation for Broken Toys is quite bizarre. On the one hand, it kind of feels like Disney, it does have the vibe of a silly symphony, but at the same time, just the style of some of the toys is a little bit peculiar. There are also some very un-PC toys, which personally doesn't bother me too much, but it does mean that the film's probably not as strong as it perhaps once was. This was released in 1935, directed by Ben Sharpsteen, and this is set in a kind of toy hospital where there are loads of broken toys that are just piling up, eventually going to be mended. And they decide that they're going to try and repair themselves and give themselves a good life. And I think that that's lovely. Don't wait for somebody else to try and do it. Try and get yourself pulled together and use each other and support each other and help each other out. And there's a lovely scene where they're taking the innards of one toy who is very much overstuffed and putting them into another toy who doesn't have any stuffing at all. And I thought it was quite a lovely scene. The music for it is pretty entertaining. Um, the animation style flows very well, but some of the design of the toys I did think were a little bit peculiar. Some of the toys were apparently recognizable. There was an Aunt Jemima, which is not something that I personally recognize, and there's also something called a I can't remember what they're called. Those puppets, but they've got the like a cross section with wires so you can control them. Um, but there was also a puppet that represented Stephen Fetchid, who was a vaudeville comedian, and I don't think there were any other references to genuine people, but if there were and I've missed any, please feel free to let me know. I'd be interested in going back and watching it. It is something that I will go back and watch at some point because I did find it quite bizarre. There's almost an eeriness to it, and I love things that are creepy and unusual, particularly with animation. But there was just something about the design of these toys that felt uncomfortable. And I think it might just be because they were all broken, they all were defective in some way, and maybe it's a little bit upsetting. All these discarded toys that were previously loved that are now just waiting to be fixed that may never be fixed. It was well animated, it flowed well, the animation style was quite pleasing, the music was entertaining, I think the colour choices were really good, it had a really pleasing colour palette, the voice acting was great. There's nothing wrong with it. It does have a vibe that's a little bit uncomfortable. I haven't quite pinpointed why that is. I do think it might just be the design of the toys. But generally speaking, it's a pretty typical silly symphony short that I thought was an interesting enough concept of these toys bandying together to help each other out and fix themselves. And, you know, I can't complain too much. It's not my favourite, but it has left an impression on me. I think it is one that I will definitely come back to. Let me know what you think of it if you've seen it. It's pretty different and yet similar at the same time, and I think that's why I find it unnerving because it kind of feels like every silly symphony, and yet at the same time, there's just something about it that I can't quite put my finger on. Maybe it's just the design of the toys. I don't know. Let me know if you're in the same boat or if you can actually identify what that aspect is that's a little bit different. But Broken Toys is definitely an interesting one and one I'd say is worth giving a watch.